bring in our analyst, a lawyer and activist, Frank Tietie, to have a conversation on this development. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you, my pleasure.
Tietie, this night. What are we witnessing? What are we dealing with? Is it flip-flop, indecisiveness, structural issues? What exactly is going on?
I think it's a crisis of service culture that doesn't realize very quickly and strongly that the president is the head of the executive, and that when he issues orders, they must first and foremost be obeyed by every member of the executive, and a member of the ministry, department, and agency of the federal government must immediately obey the president.
Regardless of rules and regulations of these agencies
you know,
on appointments and dismissals?
But look, imagine how much of an insubordination it amounts to, that the president will issue an order, and irrespective of whether it's maybe illegal or it does, some people don't like the order. For example, let's take the appointment of Shamsuddin Ogunjimi as the acting accountant general of the federation. Mm-hmm. Well, the man is absolutely qualified. The president went through all the checks and then appointed him. You know, without, there are no any forms of, you know, in terms of impediments to his appointment. And then some person just believes that he can accuse the president of regional bias, irrespective of the man's exceptional qualification as a chartered accountant and as a qualified director, and whose years of experience have spanned the various forms of fiscal, you know, accountability and accountancy across the entire world. And then it begins to now decide to frustrate the president's order. We forget that disobedience to executive orders can actually amount to some form of criminal prosecution. And that disregard is also exhibited in between the crisis between Menasara Kogo and Danladi Umar. So this culture of trying to grandstand, imagine, and I'm a bit worried because we'll take example, the president's spokesman, I'm talking about Bayo Nanuga, will issue a statement that the president has made an appointment, and then another appointee of the president within the within the civil service will say no, he will refuse, and then start one sort of politicking in the villa to overturn the decision of the president. I think that it's important for the president to be very firm, and that even if there are problems with whatever appointment he has given, the first thing is that you must obey the president if you are in any way subjected to him. The same thing we preach as lawyers, that obey every order of court, which is an arm of government. Obey the president, who heads an arm of government. So this sort of insubordination gives the impression that the president is not firm. But you see, the presidential system of government is built on the strength of the character and quality of the president. And the members of the civil service particularly must not in any way, you know, create this form of insubordination, and the president will take it lightly.
So we're dealing with the culture of strong men and weak institutions, isn't it?
Yes, unfortunately. But you see, we have to get out of it. And the only way is to emphasize the service culture. That is, there are public service rules, no doubt, but who heads the public service? Now, don't forget, a minister makes rules to guide any area of the ministry or any area of his administrative concern. Mm-hmm. The same thing that happens when a president makes a pronouncement, it is tantamount to law. The same way, the kind of law, the same that is more or less stronger than rules and regulations that are made by ministers. And then people disobey. The president will appoint someone and give the person a letter, announce it by the presidential spokesman, and then there will be persons who say no, you will not sit there, and then they'll start arguing that the president has appointed somebody who is being favored by another person, and as points and as such. Why can't you reduce the presidency or the presidential decision of a Nigerian president to such kind of politicking, and then you go back to the president, and then perhaps the president will listen? No, it's not right.
Okay, that's the case of the acting accountant general of the federation you've pointed out, with allegations of bias to where he comes from.
Yes, and that's unfortunate.
Unfortunately.
In a situation where we are dealing with competence. And then the president is actually grappling with a lot of, tax issues at this time. And it must have been instructive to have appointed a man who is a chartered,
his background.
yes, who has a chartered, who's a chartered tax expert, and to handle some of all these things. And they don't know the things. The president, before he takes decisions, oftentimes subjects these personalities to a lot of security scrutiny and in terms of competence as well.
Indeed. But let's move to the CCT, because this is very dramatic, as reports suggest that both men have been resuming to work, and now the staff are confused at the CCT as to who to answer to. In the case, there are even lawyers who say Danladi Umar has been unconstitutionally removed. Explain that to us. You're talking about the National Assembly's role and how to remove him.
It's interesting. You see, there are bound to be mistakes in governance, especially in terms of the administrative law application. However, individuals and persons must not constitute themselves into authorities and assume powers that they don't have. So if there are human rights violations or there are non-compliance to rules and regulation of any sort, and in this case express, contrary provisions, contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, what happens is that you seek some remedial procedure and you don't cause confusion. So in this case, you don't grandstand and say the CCT won't work. You don't constitute yourself into one form of, violent person to disrupt the activities. If I were in the shoes of Danladi Umar, we've seen it several times. Some of these positions are, by virtue of the privilege of the president. However, this is a battle that dealt with corruption. Yes, when we've seen it before, the CBN governor has such kind of protection for his appointment. However, when the president deems it fit in the overall national interest to suspend such a personality, that person must comply. And again, if there are non-compliance to lay down rules, it doesn't matter that you will grandstand. However, there would not be need for compliance. So what I expect is that Umar should actually step aside, allow Kogo to take over, and then if he has complaints, he can actually go and seek for redress, because this is an appointment he got by privilege in the first place. If something has been done against him by not following the laid down procedure, I think he can get some form of compensation one way or the other, but not necessarily grandstanding the CCT, which is an important arm in tackling corruption in this country.
It's quite unfortunate, because the CCT plays such a huge role, a crucial role in fighting corruption among public servants, and you have all of this drama around it. Frank Tietie, we have to thank you so much for your insights tonight on the news. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.